Okay, about a month ago, Cosmo Moore made a jacket. It was a bomber jacket made from patchwork Halloween prints, and it was adorable. And I said, I would like to make one of those too. So this video, we're going to see how that goes. Okay, so when Cosmo announced that he had the idea to make the patchwork Halloween bomber jacket, I said, oh, this is going to take less fabric than you realize, because I have actually made a patchwork bomber jacket before. And when I made that, I discovered that, you don't need to make patchwork to recreate the entire amount of yardage that the pattern envelope calls for. You just need to make your patchwork pieces big enough that each of the individual pattern pieces can go on them. And when I had made that patchwork bomber jacket before, I'd gotten into my scrap bin, and just all the colors that I wanted to use for this particular jacket, I just stuffed into a gallon-sized zip bag, plastic storage freezer bag thing, and that was enough to make this jacket. So I said, hey, that'll work out because I have a plastic gallon-sized zip storage bag of Halloween prints already. So I got this and I dumped it out and I started sorting through it, and I immediately realized that most of the pieces are they're well suited to making patchwork for dolls, but not really for human size stuff. So I'm not going to use this, obviously. And then I said, well, yeah, that's fine, because I have a drawer of short lengths of cloth that are not only for doll clothes, but I can use my Halloween stash for this too. That's fine. So I got into that. And started shuffling through things and kind of came up with a color scheme that I liked. So once I sorted out all of the prints that were within that color scheme, roughly, I didn't know if I had enough. So then I got to my larger yardages in the closet. And I shuffled through that and I pulled out a Halloween print that I want to use, but not a lot of. I desperately wanted to use some of this in this project. So I added that, and I still wasn't sure if that was enough. I know I'd already said it doesn't take as much cloth as you realize, but I'm not stuffing these in a gallon bag, so I don't have a clear idea. So then I went through my regular cloth and I got some others that were in about the right colors. And these are colors that I don't usually use and stuff myself, so as usual, the sources for this cloth are largely, there are some things that I bought myself, there are things that people have given me, and there are things that I just happen to get in thrift bags, so it should all work out. So I got a stack of cloth, including this knit to use for the ribbing. And I have my cloth. I know this is enough. I'm hoping that I can keep it mostly to the shorter lengths of stuff, the scraps for the Halloween leftovers and things that people have given me. And I will say that the main cloth that really inspired all this is this bit that Susan sent a while ago. Because these are great colors. And I think of this sort of not quite denim blue as a very not Halloween color, so of course I want to use it. It's not a unique color either. So, I picked this cloth out right after Cosmo posted it, right when I decided I wanted to make it, and now it is less than a month until Halloween and I still haven't made it, so I guess we'll see how if I can get it done before Halloween. Now, of course, to make the patchwork, I'm going to have to cut out the patches. And when Cosmo did his jacket, they were irregular. And when I did my jacket before, they were really right. Cosmos at least were all the same height, but they were different widths. Mine before were literally made of scraps from other projects. So it was, you know, I'd like sew a little piece to a not quite as large little piece, and then sew those 2 pieces to another piece, and then like assemble another 2 more pieces to sew to the edge of that, and then assemble like 5 more pieces to sew the edge of that, and I just built it up that way. This one I want to do nice and regular 4-inch square blocks, which I will do with the help of my quilt block ruler, which is this size. You just cut out this square, it's going to make 4-inch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to pick and choose which pumpkins to use on this one because the repeat is slightly smaller than a 4-inch. But I think this is the only one I'm going to have to make sacrifices and choices on, because everything else is going to be plenty big enough. Now the question is, how many patches do I need? So I'm going to get out the pattern pieces and do some really ugly math. So this is my pattern. It is New Look Junior Sizing Cool 6120 from, I believe, 1999. Now the question is, how many patches do I need? So I'm going to do some really, really rough and ugly math that I'm not even sure is going to work. It involves finding the font. That's the sleeve. Pocket. Front. Okay. Alright. So, this is, yes, what I used, 20 inches tall by round it up just a tad and say 12 inches. Now the reason I want to do 20 inches by 12 inches is because both of those are divisible by 4. Remember, the blocks we're going to be using are 4 inches. So due to the transitive properties of math, we can go ahead and divide that 4 out of the 20 by 12, which gives us 5 by 3. It's going to be 15 for each front half, so that's 30. And then the back is going to be about the same size as that, so that's 30 more, so that's 90. And then I'm going to guess the sleeves are about equal since they're not quite as wide as the back, but they're longer. I'm going to do 30 more for each sleeve. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So that's 120 blocks. So I'm going to start by cutting out 120 blocks and then see what we need from there when it actually comes time to assemble it. Okay, if I counted and added correctly, this is 123 4.5 inch squares. I don't feel like this is enough to make a jacket, but I'll start piecing them together and see. Just not right now. Right now I'm going to clean up the mess of cloth, scraps, and bits and pieces that are over there where I was working. So. Okay, it is the next day, so now I'm going to get to sewing little squares together. Well, not quite yet, because at first I thought I would be perfectly okay with sewing stuff randomly. But that's when I thought there would be a lot more than just 15 patches on each half. So since 15 is a relatively small number, I am going to at least roughly lay them out before sewing them together. And I want to do that so I don't end up having the same print too close to itself. I want a relatively even distribution. So, to do this, I'm going to turn to my improvised standing height craft table, aka ironing board with a big piece of cardboard on it. Now, the reason I'm doing this here instead of on the trunk where I did the cutting out part is because my sewing machine is right here. So if I get the stuff set up on this, then I just have to reach over from the sewing position to grab the next piece I need. Right, Foof? You want down, don't you? Yeah, growl angry. So I'm going to start by just randomly putting a piece down, and then I will adjust accordingly, figure out where all the other bits might be. And I know, like, some pieces are going to get cut off pretty severely around the armholes, so that's where I figure I'll use maybe a little more of the non-Halloween prints. I only have the vaguest idea what I'm going to be doing here. Alright, so it's time to start sewing. Okay, I have already loaded my machine with medium dark blue thread, and time to go. As much as it pains me, I'm going to do the right thing and iron these before I sew them together. Okay, now, I would say moment of truth, but it's 5 moments of truth. Well, 4 seams. Anyway, it's time to see if I was at least accurate enough that the stuff kind of, sort of, maybe vaguely lines up. time to iron again. And yes, I have extra glasses. Here is the first side finished, and now I have to figure out what I'm going to put on the other side. I have put my cardboard back, I have flipped the front piece over, and I'm going to keep the piece I've already sewn nearby so I can make sure that I'm not going to still put the same cloth too close to itself. So time to sew again, and then iron again, and then sew again, and then iron again. time to choose the patchwork pieces for the back. Now, you may have noticed that the front patchwork pieces being 3x5, there were just barely enough room on my improvised craft top here. So how am I going to lay out 5x6, 6 wide, 5 up on this? Because I'm going to lay it out on this. I'm not going to get on the floor. I'm too old for that today. Well, here's something else I do with my improvised standing height craft table. I improvise an extension. So here are the two front pieces. You can see easily, it's not quite tall enough, but it works. So I can easily lay out all 6 wide by 5 tall on this rigged setup. As long as I'm not so clumsy and like fall on it, which you never know. Is the panel assembled that the back will be cut out of. Which now means it's time to confront the sleeves. Well, we will find out if my initial idea of 120 squares is actually enough for the whole jacket. It's 30 for the front, 30 for the back. So far so good. That means we should have 60 left, so 30 for each sleeve, in theory. And if not, we'll be back to cutting out more squares. Okay, go. It is 7:30 in the evening, which for most people is just getting started with the nighttime. For me, it's like 2 hours before I'm going to sleep. So it's pretty late for me. I haven't done Animal Crossing yet today, so I'm going to stop for now. I know I could push through and I could get both sleeves sewn up, the patches sewn together tonight, but I'm not going to do that. I am happy that I found out that a 5x5 grid is all I need to do the sleeves, I think, which means that I will get them, definitely get them out of the amount of squares that I cut. I told you I'm tired. And if it turns out that I sew this 5x5 together and it's a little short for like the top of the sleeve, it will be easy enough to add like a couple more at the top. That will not use up all of my supply of remaining squares. I'm tired. But it might start to get real repetitive on that other sleeve. We'll see tomorrow. Okay, first, the child is between classes. I'm talking to a friend who's also between classes, so there's noise coming from out there. Second, so last night I stopped recording, I took the camera off the tripod, put the camera on the charger, folded the tripod up, put it to the side, because I just didn't want to leave the tripod out another day. And when I came back from playing Animal Crossing, I found that the tripod had fallen over, taking the ironing board with it. Fortunately, of course, I have the video from yesterday, so I was able to recreate the order of the the order of the patches. And also I looked at them again and I wanted to change some things. So this, you might notice, you might not have if I hadn't said anything, but so this is mostly like it was at the end of the previous segment, but also there have been changes. One of the changes that I wanted to make was, in the interest of at least trying to keep a decent amount of variety in the prints that would be on the other sleeve, I took some prints that I had, well, specifically I took out one of these sparkle bat prints because I'd only had like 2 left, and that would have put 4 on this sleeve and 2 on the other sleeve, so I took one of those out to get 3 on that sleeve, and there will be 3 on this sleeve. And so I did that, and I also decided, again in the interest of having a decent amount of variety, because we already know if I only need 25 per sleeve, that would be 50 total, and I had 60 left. So we know that I had, well, actually 63 because I'd cut extras. So we know I had plenty to get the other sleeve made. Even if I have to end up doing another row at the top, it's fine. But in the interest of having variety, I cut one more Belinda's Big Kitty, one more of this wax print, and even though it is not wide enough, I cut one of these pumpkins. If I put it on the edge, it won't matter that it's not wide enough because, you know, one edge is just going to be cut off anyway. And it's time to sew more squares together. That's it. I'm done sewing squares together. 30, 15 here and 15 here makes 30. 30 more for the backs makes 60, and 25 on each sleeve, plus a few. It's 50. So that's 110 squares. Did you think that 110 squares would be enough to make a jacket? I didn't. But I'm glad I kind of trusted my rough calculations and only cut 120-ish. Anyway, now it's time to start cutting out the pattern pieces. So that's it, everything is cut out. Tomorrow I will sew. It's gonna go together fast, trust me. I've made this jacket several times already. It's not a complicated jacket. I always overcomplicate things. If I hadn't been making the patchwork, I would have had this done already. So hopefully I can actually buckle down and do it all tomorrow, just because it would be nice to have this finished. We'll see you tomorrow. So it is nearly 6 o'clock, 2 days later. I have not touched the project since the last video segment I recorded, but I can start. And sewing this part should go relatively fast because I am not going to iron anymore. And I do know that pressing is very important for garments, to press each seam after you sew them. But the way I get around that is I top stitch everything. So it might take more time at the machine and it might take more thread to it. But I love top stitching anyway. I like the look of a good top stitch. So that's what I do instead of ironing so much. So let's start. Okay, this is where I am now. My memory card in my camera is just about full, so that's as good a reason as any to stop for the night. If I'd gotten started earlier, I could have, emptied the card and finished this, but tomorrow I should be able to get the ribbing in and get the zipper in, and the way the ribbing goes in is what attaches the lining to the shell, so that'll be it. It'll be finished. I might actually iron this lining bit, but if I do that, I won't record it. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Chip, buddy, bud, chip. That's where my feet go. So, here is the finished jacket. It is, I think it turned out pretty well. And, I know there are some people who, whenever they do a sewing project, every project they do, they want to challenge themselves somehow. I'm not that ambitious, but I will say this project did have the challenge of a little more intentionality than most of my patchwork projects. Like I said, usually I will just get into my bin of scraps left over from other projects. So it is unusual for me to choose fabrics and cut these squares out of them and have them all be the same shape instead of doing little jigsaw puzzle type patchwork. Trying to get things a little more evenly spaced and distributed. That's also a little unusual for me, so I guess there were some learning experiences in this, but most of all, overall, once I got the patchwork assembled, which again was not hard, but it was tedious, the jacket went together really easily, and I knew it would because I have made jackets from this pattern many times before, and it's a nice, quick jacket pattern, which, I don't know, maybe someday I'll make a video of just making the jacket straight. I'll have to go through my cloth, see if I have anything really wild that would be appropriate for that, but for now, the jacket is finished.